welcome to episode 698 of Longbox Heroes, the Lamborghini of comic book podcasts. I'm Todd, along with Joe. How are we doing today, Joe?
That Lamborghini is humming like nobody's business today.
It's just the way I say it. It's like I like to just give it when I say it.
Yeah.
You know?
It definitely doesn't sound like my mother the car, you know?
What? I know that TV show, and I think that was an insult, Joe.
All right. But no, I'm not feeling great. I've been schnotting up all over the place, like for the last 3 or 4 days. Me and the kid have been left home alone like the little boy in the movie. We've been schnotting all over each other. My wife's gone on a business trip, and the hotel that she's at has poor circulation. So when she calls, she sounds horrible. So we're going to be in peak physical condition for our vacation next week.
I'll say the hotel she's staying in is just like my feet then. So... poor circulation.
Oh, my goodness. Have you gotten the socks, the fancy socks that help with circulation? Do you want me to get them for you?
I have not gotten fancy socks, but I think I'll need a sock-dini if I get one of those. Isn't it the shoe-dini or is it the sock-dini?
You could use the shoe-dini. There's a gripper thing that you could use it to put socks on as well. But
Wasn't that Gilbert?
Yes, it was Gilbert as the voice of the shoe-dini spokesperson.
Gotcha. So maybe I'll get one of those and then get the compression socks. So
yes,
sounds like a plan. Would you like to know what's on this week's show, Joe?
Yes, I would.
Boy, a comic creator's multimedia conglomerate, the rebirth of a classic comic company, and survey says. Also, we have the latest edition of My Walk Down Lois Lane by our good friend Beckie, which is the second half of a two-parter, which is fantastic. What we read last week, which was Action Comics 1062. What we're looking forward to this week. Todd and Joe have issues where we reread Gail Simone's Secret Six in its entirety. And this week we're doing Secret Six #1 from the miniseries. And I believe that's everything because we're all worn out from the Madam Webs, Joe.
Oh, boy. If you haven't subscribed to the Patreon, if you're not in the Discord, it's just been nothing but nonstop Madam Web discussion. And I just want to throw something else out here as well. Give kudos to a great Twitter follow, a gentleman by the name of Rob London. I mentioned on the Patreon show, but I'm mentioning it here as well. His Twitter handle is Ruler Bulon, Bulon. And he, this last week, has been doing deep dives of all the main characters in the Madam Web movie and of all their comic, history, if you will.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And it's very funny that the lead character in the movie, Madam Web herself, is the one with the least amount of actual comic book appearances.
Well, she was all the rage at the comic shop today, Joe.
Yes,
all the
rage. We were talking.
Madam Web. Our good friend DJ showed up, so there was a lot of talk from that because he had recently seen the movie twice. Right. And he feels like he could watch it 24/7 anytime. That's kind of what he was saying. But he was really, I believe the phrase that you used was he was on one about Madam Web. So it was a fun time, and we had a lot of discussion about that. And I would like also an award for the great opening of this week's episode. That's all I'm going to say.
Yes, perfect, seamless, smooth as a baby's bottom, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so as Todd had mentioned in the news up front, James Tynion has announced the launch officially of his Tiny Onion production company.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not just comic book stuff. And again, it's been everywhere, right? But this is directly off of his Substack of everything, right?
Right.
It's going to be an independently owned production company. He already has the funding. There's already staffing involved. He may have picked some folks that were at Boom to be part of whatever it is. He's going to have representation and more announcements at the Comics Pro event this week. Mm-hmm. But the most important thing about it is anything that he currently has announced comic-wise is going to keep going on. They're not being canceled because of this. Does this mean more of his stuff is moving to Hollywood? Yes, but he can't make those announcements yet.
Right.
And while it is a production company, it is not a publisher. They're going to be working with the publishers to help them get their work through him and his work through them out in more and exciting ways.
Right. They're basically going to spread the word, kind of a deal.
Yes. But again, this is like a kind of a big deal, even though like a lot of people are like, I don't really know what this announcement is. And right now the announcement is nothing. It's essentially like, hey, I'm James Tynion. I did a bunch of stuff in comics. I have my own company now so that I can start shopping my stuff around to Hollywood and whatever. And maybe if my stuff hits, you'll come to me and we could work together, as opposed to like you. And this does happen. You know, we've talked the last couple of weeks on the show when a friend of the show, Kyle M.M. Starks, has gotten something picked up, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like, he's just a guy, and I'm sure he's got representation, you know, for whatever, but I'm sure there's a lot of folks that have a project and maybe they don't have like that quote unquote Hollywood representation. Mm-hmm. And James Tynion is a big enough person in the comic book space with enough cachet behind him from a lot of the other projects that he's done, both mainstream stuff and his own independent stuff. Primarily, I assume if it's not already announced, and if it's already announced and I don't know it, I'm stupid. But that Something is Killing the Children book.
Right.
I assume that's probably going to be with the big rollout launch of whatever Tiny Onion ends up being.
You don't think it could be, what's the Truth one?
Department of Truth could be in there as well, right?
Right. I think if I was betting, that's the one, but go ahead.
Okay. So with that being said, it's like, well, hey, I got these big projects with my company. I could get things moved through. And, you know, I'm going to assume the best and think that he's looking to do something to assist other creators in the space, right?
Right. So as I look at it, I get what you're saying, because I feel like he's of that level that he's approachable by smaller guys. You know what I mean? Like, that's the draw for this. It's like, here's a guy who has backing, but he's been a grunt and he's closer. He's, you know, a name now, but he's closer to like the grunts in the trenches, that it's like, oh, like, if you're overwhelmed, come see me. And I really think that's an advantage to going into some of these companies. And it's like, well, are they going to treat me badly? Who am I going to talk to? Do they even understand what I'm doing? He's definitely a good go-between to someone who might be scared to go try and talk to somebody about their projects.
Right. And I guess the production company Lyrical Media is the folks that put like the money into Tiny Onion to kind of get them off the ground. And it's just going to be like a logo that's going to be at the front of a movie that you watch eventually in the near future, right?
Right.
Or a TV show or an animated project or, you know, a streaming original series. But more power to him, man. Like, hopefully this is not only the impetus for more creators working with Tynion, but maybe big creators like Tynion or bigger creators deciding to do something like this themselves.
Right.
And it's going to be very interesting to see what all shakes out from it, right?
Definitely.
Yep. Another announcement this week, ONI Press. ONI's been making a lot of big moves in 2024, right? Mm-hmm. You know, they have the Great Garloo universe coming up.
Definitely.
But they just announced that starting this summer, specifically in July, they are going to be relaunching EC Comics.
Right.
It's going to be a separate brand under the Oni imprint, and they got a ton of big name creators on this, and they are working hand in hand with the William Gaines family in regards to the relaunch of EC Comics. And, you know, we got some, you know, cover things here from folks like Greg Smallwood and Lee Brahamo. And then going down the list of folks that will be working on books is like starting at people like Jason Aaron, Brian Azzarello, Cullen Bunn, Joshua Hale Fielkoff. Where have you been my whole life, right?
Right.
Matt Kint, Kano, who did like great work at DC in the early 2000s, Peter Cross, the aforementioned Brihamo and Greg Smallwood, J.H. Williams III, right? Mm-hmm. So, you know, they're getting big name folks, and like this is a property, you know, we saw them do repros and reprints of stuff like this. You know, when we do previewing the past, as Tales from the Crypt was coming back, we would get like reprints, but like no new publishing initiative behind EC Comics. And, you know, EC Comics, I think nowadays it's been 70 years since horror comics kind of ruled the world of comics, and the whole seduction of the innocent thing and the Comics Code coming into play and kind of killing off EC Comics back in the 50s and early 60s, mostly the 50s. But I'm down with this, man. Like, I love horror comics, and like I'm a fan of the Tales from the Crypt stuff. And, you know, I remember when they were putting reprints of this stuff in like like I was finding reprints of this stuff in old Mad magazines that I got from my folks.
Right. I mean, they are the staple of what horror comics were. They're. I mean, like you said, they were the ones with Seduction of the Innocent and Frederick Wortham that came in and like just threw comics on his head because of that. And I think they probably had like new stories here and there. But I'm interested. I'm not a horror movie guy, but I do love horror comics, because on the printed page it doesn't attack the senses as it does like on the screen, like when they use the special effects. So, and it's usually more that was implied in comics and stuff like that. But I'm kind of looking forward to this because, as you mentioned before, Kyle M.M. Starks had a short story in one of the Creep Show anthologies, which wasn't EC's, but I thought it was, and I love that. So I do love like that kind of stuff. So I mean, just some of the names on it, I'm definitely going to go and check it out. I mean, just Jason Aaron alone. And then to see what Greg Smallwood can do with a horror title, like my mind boggles at it because he was so like soft and like different in The Human Target. Just to see like maybe he changes up with more harsher colors because he does like a lot of his own coloring. I don't know. It's just something I'm very, very curious about. And I was a fan of the Tales from the Crypt HBO show too, for some reason, even though it doesn't seem like something that I would be. So yeah, this is going to be cool.
Yeah, so it's going to be 2 anthology books, one focusing on the horror stuff called Epitaphs from the Abyss, and another one focusing on the sci-fi aspect of things called Cruel Universe. And again, you know, announcements coming out. We're heading into the beginning of official con season in a week or two. You know, some of these folks are going to be at Comics Pro this weekend plying their wares. But, you know, when these pop up in the solicitations, we'll be sure to remind you folks that there's time to still order them.
Right.
Lastly, and again, I like when the news is all independent stuff, you know?
Right. That the summer stuff is usually the bigger companies. So
right. But as right before we started recording here today, we had gotten our mailer from Image Comics with their new Image Select Retailer Award. Image invites fans to nominate their local comic shop for this award based on criteria as such, and I'm not going to read everything here. You just have to fill out this form with your store's name, location, and all those sort of things. But the inaugural winner will be announced in less than 2 weeks at the Lunar Retailer event at Emerald City Comic Con. And there'll be a new store that wins every quarter. The store will receive a commemorative medallion to display with pride. If only it was a challenge coin, I'd try to get that from our retailer when he wins. An Image Select Retailer Award window cling. A spotlight Q&A to be featured on Image's social media platforms. And the store's choice of a gold foil exclusive variant branded as an Image Select Retailer Award winner, limited to 250 comics.
Right. That's a biggie, Joe.
That is a biggie.
That would be sought after by people. So,
all right. So there's a Google form. Let me I might be able to do this through multiple accounts. Be quiet, everybody.
What? Oh.
Nothing. Shh. Yes. All right, I'm filling it out for our comic book shop, and this is a good spot for me to do the plugs for him and them. Comics on the Green, of course, Dave and the crew. If you do not have a comic book store in your area, or you do not have a good comic book store in your area, make sure not to nominate them for the the Image Retailer Appreciation Award.
Right.
Nominate our comic book shop for it.
That's right. We don't ask for much around here.
Absolutely not. Now, as I'm filling out the form here, there's their websites. They're in lovely downtown Scranton, Pennsylvania.
Don't get none on you. That's the motto, I think.
Okay. Exemplary customer service. Yes. Thoughtful and exciting hand-selling recommendations. Yes. Efforts fostering a welcome and inclusive atmosphere. Yes. Easy to browse shelving. Yes. Attractive and innovative displays. Yes. Forward-thinking customer marketing and out-of-the-box consumer outreach. Yes. Community engagement. Yes. Robust inventory of and support for Image Comics and other creator-owned things. Yes. What about the comic shop stands out to you as unique? Please share a positive experience or further detail to help us to get to know your store's impact.
Right. I would always start. The one thing that I really like about our shop is that they always let the customer know as soon as they come through the door that they're available there to help. Do you know what I mean? Not so much me and you, because we're in there every week. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's no need to be like, oh, Todd, Joe, do you need anything? Like, they say, but they always say hi. You know what I mean? They always say hi. And a new customer comes in, they're like, hello, welcome to the shop. If you need anything, let us know. And that lets them know that they can either peruse at their own leisure, or if they have a specific question, get right to it. That, to me, is one of the greatest things, and I think every comic book shop should do. I don't know how you can compress that into small, but you get what I'm saying.
Thing in there about the kids section as well. I'm going to mention their longevity and duration. Other local businesses.
Right.
And
right.
Max, the dog, is very cute and barks at most people, but not me.
Right.
And I'm really putting that in there.
Right. They also have a Silver Surfer display that they would prefer you don't touch, but it's very nice to look at.
Don't touch the Silver Surfer display.
Max is the big draw for the comic shop. I will say that.
I would say so. All right. I got a couple email addresses I could send that from, so I'm not getting rid of that email just yet.
Ooh, you know what? I may have some emails I may have laying around, Joe.
Yeah. All right. So that was like a truncated plug section to get Dave and the crew's stuff out of the way there. Plugs are going to be kind of all over the place. Hey, soon-to-be-named-network.com, soon-to-be-named-network.tumblr.com. Anytime any of the shows go live, of course, you can find them at their own individual sites. You can find them through your podcatcher, of course. And apparently all podcasts are legally obligated to be on YouTube now, which I don't like, but it is what it is.
Pretty much.
Or you can find them all over at soon-to-be-named-network, at soon-to-be-named-network.com, soon-to-be-named-network.tumblr.com. Be sure to check out the other stuff. Oh, well, hang on. Be sure to check out all the shows. That includes this show, Longbox Heroes, Longbox Heroes After Dark, Final Wrestling Place, At Odds with Wrestling, We Need Wrestling, Puzzle Warriors 3, Profane Arguments, Hayabusa, Porch Talk, Wings on Wings, and I think that's everything.
I believe so.
And anytime anybody from those shows show up on other shows and they let me know they went on the other shows, I could promote them over at soon to be named network.com. Check out our friends and the stuff that they're up to in and around the internet, such as Mike Sterling's blog over at progressiveruin.com, Kevin Hellion's blog over at helionsteam.com, Rick Williams' The Chop Shop over at freekaratechops.storeenvy.com, Jason Sandberg's Jupiter over at his Indiegogo, and that's like project/Jupiter-issue-1. Chris Runt's Battle Monsters at fortressofcomicnews.com. Davey of the band Cave People is a self-published comic maker himself. You can get his stuff over at cavedomaincomics.com. And I know we had given the push for Comics on the Green, of course, in the Image Impact Retailer Award deal. But if you do sign up for their mail order subscription service, getting stuff mailed to you weekly, bi-weekly, or monthly, there's a chance you can get a sketch on the package from our good friend Beckie, who we're going to turn things over to right now for her walk down Lois Lane.
Welcome back to my Walk Down Lois Lane. Last week we covered issue 80 from 1968. Superman chose to crush cars into little cubes instead of showing up to Lois's birthday party. So she left him and started a new life in Coral City as an unlicensed nurse with an astronaut boyfriend. Will she go back to Superman? Let's dive in with issue 81. Clark is depressed. All of his news articles look like I wrote them, and he misses how annoying Lois was. He decides writing her a love letter will fix things, and he puts it into a typewriter ribbon he's crushed into a UFO and tosses it across the country into Lois's mailbox. She tears it up without reading it. She thinks it's another letter full of more excuses. Superman realizes he's messed up real bad this time and decides to rewind time by flying through the time barrier. This way, he can attend her birthday party and she won't have a mental breakdown. He goes to the car lot to tell the owner that he can't smash cars today, but the opportunity to crush things with his bare hands is just too tempting. He thinks to himself, I can probably do both if I'm fast enough. But he hits the cars so hard they travel through the earth, causing giant tornadoes across the world that then he has to go and fix. By the time he gets back, he's forgotten about the party again, and continues to smash cars like he's Donkey Kong. Lois finds him, has the exact same mental breakdown, and dumps him. All this accomplished was just endangering more lives. Meanwhile, Lois is living it up as a nurse. She's meeting astronaut guy's parents, I'm not learning this man's name, and working for a doctor who's trying to rehabilitate dangerous criminals with mind gas. The criminals attack the doctor, and Lois uses her years of shenanigans having to beat the ever-living stuffing out of these dudes before being held hostage. Superman shows up to help, but before he can, she's hit with the gas. When Lois wakes up, she can now read minds, and while Superman is yelling at her, she can see that he loves her. She tells him once more to go away. He says she doesn't love astronaut guy. I looked up his name, by the way. It's Rand Kirby. And Lois should just come home to him, and Lois can see that Superman is dreaming of a life with her. Lois gives in and now wants to go home, but she has to break up with Bland. She tries to, but he proposes, and she can't do it. Lois's new powers also let her see the future. In Superman's next mission, he's going to be hit with kryptonite. He will die, but if Bland goes up to help him, he will live, but Bland will die. Yet another man's death around Lois. She decides that she can't pick who lives and who dies, so she stows away on a rocket and floats out into space to save Superman, but just like her nursing degree, she's not trained properly and begins to have problems. Bland tries to rescue her, and he begins to die too. Superman snaps out of his kryptonite ray and rescues them both. Back on Earth, Lois breaks up with Bland, and Superman flies her home, telling her that he's glad she's back. And Lois is over the moon because she knows Superman loves her. These are some of the last issues that Schaffenberger worked on. And if you're going to pick these up for yourself, you will not see any better Lois Lane panels than the ones of her in the rain outside the junk heap screaming at Superman that she's had enough of him. They're so fantastically drawn. They really add to the drama of everything. This Lois Lane 80 and 81 are both rare ones where it's the entire issue of a story instead of just 3 smaller ones. They used to print 3 small stories, and then later on, when they ran out of ideas, would print a new one with an old previous Lois Lane. This is before they started putting Rose and Thorn into the comics. Who is Rose and Thorn, you may ask? She's awesome, and I will cover her sometime. Join me next week for some more Lois Lane.
Thank you very much, Beckie. And I have a feeling we'll be hearing more from Beckie next week on the show.
Mm-hmm.
I say it every week, and this is the first time, and Beckie mentioned it, of course, that typically a lot of these Lois Lane stories are like one comic with 3 different stories in them.
Right.
But this one, which was a cliffhanger from issue 80 to issue 81, definitely felt like the 1,000 Monkeys and 1,000 Typewriters.
Right.
You know, there's no way I would have guessed any of those things that happened in issue 81 that did happen in issue 81, but I like the tease that we're going to get information about Rose and Thorn in the near future.
I'm aware of Rose and Thorn, but I look forward to the education that she will be giving us. And I love the fact that Superman just loves Cuban cars. Almost might be addicted to it and or have an OCD about it. So that's fantastic. And smacks them so hard he drives them through the planet. Man, he's really got to control his car, Cuban, as far as I'm concerned.
Any story where Superman does a thing to turn back time is always a winner for me.
That's right. That's right.
So again, thank you very much, Beckie, for your continued contributions to the show with the discussions of these Lois Lane romance, et cetera, comics. Let's get into what we read from this past week, Todd. We both have the same book that we were both looking forward to, and that was Action Comics 1062, written by Jason Aaron with art by John Timms.
Yes. And since the last issue, like this bizarro virus is the best way to call it, is attacking, transforming people in Metropolis into bizarro versions of themselves and wreaking havoc, upon the city. The one who's not affected is Superman, though he's kind of cracking since it was, Bizarro was inside his head. But it's, days and time has passed on. And I love it. To me, it's always a sign of a hero when they are fatigued yet will not give up. And that's what's going on with Superman. He doesn't get to sleep. He doesn't get to rest. He just has to constantly stop bizarro chaos in this city. And that's heart-wrenching, but makes you root for Superman all the more. Along the way, we see Lois, who's, bizarrofied, and what Batman's doing with the other heroes and mystical heroes, trying to break the spell that Bizarro did, and how we learn how it works. Like if you're in the city, you contract it, kind of a deal. But as this goes on, maybe things are getting more and more out of control, and in the end, maybe there's almost nobody left to help except for one person, and it's very logical who Superman goes to see and help. This is a very creepy Superman book. I would not think that it would work very well together, but the bizarroness of it, and then what he's trying to stop, it's just freaky. And I absolutely love everything about this issue and the last issue.
Yes. So, we get a lot of harrowing stuff in this, and again, there's such and again, I hate to say it's a gag, right?
Mm-hmm.
But this is, the last page is great.
Yep.
Right? It's one of those things that is so simple we should have seen coming, and the fact that we didn't see it coming and it was such a surprise was really good. But the complexity of this story in its simplicity, in that Bizarro being in Superman's head and releasing essentially what is being treated as a virus. It's essentially a zombie apocalypse in the DC universe, specifically Metropolis. We do get ideas that it is spreading elsewhere.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that it's infecting Superman, and the more he fights to not become a Bizarro, he is the Bizarro of this new world.
Right. The way they look at him is very interesting, which also mirrors why, and this is one thing that I will give away, why Bizarro's doing is because the way he was treated by people in Metropolis.
Yes.
And now he's like, now you feel what it's like, kind of a deal. You know what I mean? And just such genius.
And it's one of those things where Bizarro's plan, at least the way that it's laid out, and I'm sure a smarter, better person than me, probably the writer of this book, Jason Aaron, has the idea, but if Superman succumbs and becomes Bizarro, then Bizarro wins. If Superman resists and he becomes the Bizarro, only normal person left on a world of Bizarros, then Bizarro wins.
That's a rough way of looking at it, Joe.
Yeah, so we get a team up at the end. Superman enlists I guess the only person who can make sense of this new crazy world that it's in, but like we get cameos from Blue Devil and John Constantine in this. This is a great book, and the fact that they're going to do Action Comics more or less as an anthology-ish book. Well, not an anthology book, but like rotating creative teams.
Yep.
Obviously Jason Aaron may not have a year, 2 years, 3 years worth of Superman stories, or maybe he does and they just want to break it up,
Mm-hmm. Just so good. And and a lot of great creators on the rotation too. So I think I'll be picking up Action for a while. So
yeah. I'm back into a world where I am a regular reader of Superman like it was 30 years ago,
Such a great character.
Yeah, I tell you. We mentioned before, both publicly and privately to folks to check out Superman, whether it be the current Joshua Williams stuff, which is only about a year in to its run, give or take. The Jason Aaron stuff, which is only 2 issues in,
Mm-hmm.
Everything you need to know is in there. Everybody knows Superman, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So that's what we both read from this past week. Let's get into what we're looking forward to coming out this week. If you head over to longboxheroes.com, every Tuesday around noon Eastern time, we put up the pull post, which is a link to all the books that are coming out this week. Whether you get your books in print, whether you get them digitally, whether you get them sent to your home, however it is you get your books, be forewarned, be forearmed, know what's coming out this week. Todd and I attempt to guess what the other is most looking forward to coming out this week. Todd is currently in the lead over me with 1 correct guess.
Yes.
Let's see what we could do about any of this, huh?
I'm looking over your list, and it's a mismatch of different things. But is the book you're looking forward to most Cobra Commander #2, because who they're probably going to visit?
It is Cobra Commander #2.
Yeah, baby.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you know this. The voice of that character is going to be at a New Jersey con. So I was like, if you want him to maybe do your voice on your cell phone, like the answering machine. So that would be great. I think we'll go and do that.
I would have
just kidding.
Just kidding. Have him do my outgoing message, or just kidding that he's going to be at the convention?
He's definitely going to be there. I don't see you going to just get a message.
Okay. So looking at your list, I'm kind of up in the air.
Okay.
No new number ones. No thing that you're super passionate about really on there.
Mm-hmm.
A couple things I can definitely eliminate. I'll take the shot and say the book you're most looking forward to coming out this week is Zorro, Man of the Dead #2.
It is. I really enjoyed the first one, and I was worried I wasn't, but I really liked it, and I'm looking forward to more.
Cool. I'm glad. And this is one of those ones, we talked about it before, where I knew there was the Patreon Kickstarter, whatever it was, for the book.
Right.
And I ended up missing it whenever it came out. And I'm like, boy, I hope I catch this when it comes out. And I was able to catch it when it came out.
Right. I passed on that one, but I went for the Jimmy Palmiotti Hunters one. So it's kind of like you can only do so many. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And hey, I would be remiss to mention here as well, Jimmy Palmiotti has a new Kickstarter as well.
Yep.
Jimmy Palmiotti, one of the best guys in all the comics, I would say.
Cannot argue that.
Yeah. Let me look up the name of it here. It just launched today as we're recording. It's called Phantasia, Fantasimia,
Phantasma, I would say.
Right, see, it's a little difficult to pronounce. It's being said that it's a graphic novel because you have to say it's a graphic novel, but it's like 3 issues of a book, right? and you could get it as, digitally as cheap as like $10. You could get it as high up, or $15 for the digital, $20, for
physical copy.
Physical, and then there's like variety of different covers and signatures.
Signed,
yeah, all sorts of different things from all sorts of different artists and so forth. Dan Panozan, Dave Johnson, Joe Linsner, Amanda Connor, of course, all sorts of things. And this is one of those ones that, and I'm torn on the way that Jimmy does his books. I know he used to do it this way in the past when he does the Kickstarter stuffs,
Mm-hmm.
He used to do like a lower tier early bird special.
Right.
But now he does like a higher tier early bird special.
Mm-hmm.
Which is good for like the folks that want the higher tier thing. But then, like me, I could just be like, all right, I'll keep an eye on it. I don't have to worry. Like, it'll definitely get funded. I'll hop in like a day before, a week before, whatever, and grab the book, But he used to do like limited edition-y stuff for like the early bird on the low ends,
And I don't know on this one, I haven't checked if he has art tiers. That was always fun. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That you can get sketches and stuff like that. But as you say, Joe, I don't know if this one's going to get funded. As of today, with 28 days to go, he needs $38,000 to back this. And he's at 35,511 as of like 8 hours.
Yeah.
That's the sign of somebody who's put out project after project with zero problem, Joe. Zero. You always get. That's the one thing, reliability, man. The best ability is availability, Joe.
I would have to say so. That is his model, and it works for him. There's never been an issue, a complaint, a concern. He's never missed a deadline when it comes to him doing his Kickstarter stuff. So
exactly.
Yeah. So that's what we're looking forward to coming out this week. While you're over at longboxheroes.com, of course, you can check out all the other stuff that Todd and I have done, whether it be past episodes of this show, past episodes of After Dark, and, of course, the current ongoing Todd and Joe Have Issues, rereading all of Gail Simone's Secret Six. We talked about it last week. I'll mention it again. In your current solicitations, they have the first omnibus of the first half of all of this stuff. The Villains United stuff, the Birds of Prey stuff, everything else like that. But right now, we are looking at the first issue of the first miniseries of Secret Six, spinning out of Villains United. And I will say, I forgot how much Villains United stuff is still in this.
Yeah, there's a lot of, because the society was a little mad at the Secret Six, so that might come into play, Joe.
Right. Written by Gail Simone, art by Brad Walker, inked by Jimmy Palmiotti, the aforementioned Jimmy Palmiotti, of course. Our story starts off in South Korea. And it's a person who is telling us how bad this prison camp that they are in is. And it really sets the stage for how things go. And he's essentially explaining this to us, the readers, but he's also explaining this to somebody else who is captive there. And I love that shot of this mystery person, whoever it might be, with the bag on their head and the one eye hole torn up and so forth. And I think whether you're new to the series, you read the Villains United series, you're new to DC Comics, or you're a DC Comics type person, it's very clear who this person is, right?
Right.
So the person who is telling us this, he is going to accompany this person with the hood over their head out to the middle of the square where he is going to be, killed, right?
Right.
And, talking about how, they... part of the way that the guards work is they allow you to attempt to escape because they get more money or they get rewarded and so forth for stopping people from escaping. And the guards today are very excited because it's the first time that they're going to be getting to kill an American, right?
Mm-hmm.
However, the Six are on their way. They do have a reluctant pilot a la Murdoch of the A-Team who's going to drop them in to assist whomever this is. And as I do a head count, if I didn't know who the person there in the camp was before, I certainly know who it is now.
Could be, Joe.
Yes. And as the commandant is, saying everything that he has to say to our masked person, and it's being translated for him, a name comes up, a name is mentioned, and the commandant laughs, and it turns out that our masked person was hired by the spouse of this person's name, and again, I'm not going to try to pronounce it because I'm going to butcher it and sound like a fool, Jip Leon, and again, I probably did a terrible job on that. And obviously the deal was that it's revealed that it's Deadshot. He took the job to come in, take out the commandant, and then obviously the rest of the 6 are there to rescue him and, take a few names, as it were, as well, right?
Yep. I just want to say this, as they drop into this North Korean, refugee camp, the fact that we've already, since Villains United, this is like our 3rd set of costumes for the 6, Joe. We have the classic colors. And then remember we had in Villains United the night, the undercover of night costumes.
Yes.
And now we have their snow costumes. I will take McFarlane figures of them all, Joe. Of them all. Give me night, snow, whatever, Catman, and I will buy it.
Give me a box set. Give me a something, right?
Give me a Secret 6 box set with the 5 main characters, and then the variant is the alternate 6s over time. Now, make it harder to collect.
I'll say this: the way that you do the opportunity is, it's a set of 8 figures. You're guaranteed 5. The other 3 are mystery figures.
Oh my goodness. I would buy that set, Joe.
And I'll say this, the one that we get a little bit more information on is Knockout, who's the newest member. Knockout and Scandal are betrothed, we'll say. They're a couple. If you're picking this up, you know who these characters are, except for Knockout. As mentioned, she's the newest character on the team. But they still give you bits of information of who these characters are and their relationship with each other, their tenuous relationship with each other. They are back at the House of Secrets, which is repaired, and I'm okay with that. Right.
And I like Ragdoll's room because there's something very creepy about Ragdoll's room, Joe. The fact that he keeps his buddy Parademon stuffed in his room, and the fact that he had his legs blown off in one arm, so there's just that, and he's got the limp one arm and the body on the stick. Absolutely amazing. Love the detail that they got it right to what limbs he's lost, and it's not creepy at all, Joe. Not creepy at all.
And Ragdoll talks to the Parademon remains. There appears to be some artwork that he's working on of them as well.
Mm-hmm.
And again, we get this great, and again, camaraderie, great dialogue between the characters in their off hours, if you will.
Right.
Whether it be Deadshot bragging that he, as they say, scored with Power Girl, or says Ragdoll talking to the remains of Parademon is as creepy as, quote, French kissing your sister, to which Ragdoll says, I've done that. This is less awkward socially.
Just twisted characters all around,
yes.
Joe.
Yes. And Knockout has a couple of, I guess, refugees from Apocalypse, working there as servants, as butlers, as something at the House of Secrets.
Right. I think they're hunger dogs or something like that. So
okay. The lesser folks in the New God stuff is a little,
Right.
So Scandal has, I guess, their next business. One last bit of business that they have to wrap up. Word has gotten back to them that the Society, specifically Dr. Psycho, has a bone to pick with the 6. And again, there's only 5 of them. And they do need a 6. And because Dr. Psycho is such a powerful telepath, mind control person.
Yep.
We are informed in a much and I like the way that they go about describing this and talking about this. That they don't come right out and beat you over the head with what they're going to do. It's very much talked about and hinted about, so as not to kind of give away of who and what they're going for, right?
Right.
Of course, we get information of who Dr. Psycho has enlisted. And if you look at the cover of this issue and you look at the previous member of the Secret Six, you will find out who it is. But everyone gets a time after this mission before they go off on their next mission, whether they go off to get a bite to eat, go to connect with family, or to be alone with loved ones. They all get that moment. But Catman has the job of going to find their latest recruit. And I don't want to give it away because we're going to talk about it in next week's episode.
Mm-hmm.
It's the last page splash of this. And we only get this character in the book for a little bit. This is set up that sometimes there's characters that are just there for a mission or whatever it is. And I really feel as though a Gail Simone story with this character, with this villain as the focal point of it, I think would have been one of those deals that kind of like how Kite Man became not a joke anymore.
Right.
I think Gail Simone, not to say that this character is a joke, but we'll talk about it next week, but this character is definitely not in the A tier or the B tier of villains.
Mm-hmm.
But I definitely think just a little bit that we get of this character in this miniseries, we definitely could have got them up to at least a high B plus tier.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But I do like all the subplots that as all the other characters are off on their, come down time to relax, they all get attacked by somebody that Dr. Psycho has sent. And it's not going well for some of them, Joe.
Right. Whether they're alone or whether they're with others, it does not matter. They all have someone very specifically tied into them, particularly to take them out. And the bit that we get where Scandal and Knockout are alone in the hotel, they know that they're being shot at. There's something about to hit them. And Knockout picks Scandal up, tosses her off of the penthouse floor of the hotel that they're in. I assume they're in Venice. Do we get told that they're in Venice?
I think they're in Shanghai or something like that.
Okay, I was gonna say because the way that it's throws Scandal to the river below, and there's boats and stuff. So I just immediately thought, I think
Bangkok.
you are right. There you go. Thank you.
Bangkok. Yep.
But obviously outside of Catman and the new recruit, it looks like there's not going to be much of a team to come back to next issue.
Right. I think they're changing it to the Secret One next month.
Yes. But this is the book that I remember. This is the book that I love. Not to say that the previous 7 issues that we read, not to say that there's not Villains United stuff, or what's the Infinite Crisis stuff that's still dabbled in here. But it's they kind of hand wave a lot of it away. That the Luthers are gone. We've got Talia. We've got the Calculator. We've got Dr. Psycho. Doing what they can without it being part of the bigger picture of the greater DC universe.
Right. It's very simple. Basically, something happened and we've ticked off this group, nay, society of villains, and now we have to deal with it. It's just, the nuts and bolts of it.
Yeah. But this is great. Obviously, and again, it's not a knock, but if I have a nitpick, going from the Dale Eaglesham art to the Brad Walker art is a little jarring reading them back to back like this.
Right.
Not to say that Brad Walker is a bad artist by any stretch of the imagination. His stuff is great. I like the way the book is colored. Of course, Jimmy Palmiotti is a great inker, but Dale Eaglesham is Dale Eaglesham, man. There's just a cleanness and a way that he puts together a page, a layout with tons and tons of people in it. And like I said, it's still a really good book. And this is the book that I remember. This is the book that I love, as it starts to develop these interplay relationships with all these characters, at least who ends up being the main core of the group.
Yep. And for me, I like the art. Like I'm pretty more easygoing on art than you, because to me, the crux of what made this book so good, the artist is up there, is the ability of Gail Simone to turn a phrase with these characters. Is just the dialogue is so creepy, funny, like big, like action movie energy, however you want to describe whatever they're doing at the time. That's what I always loved about the book. But, they've had, as this goes on and then Secret Six gets into its ongoing later on, there's some good looking artists on this book, Matt. So.
Right. And I'll say this, we've brought this up many, many times in the past on other shows. And, we talked earlier in the show about Jason Aaron, how we're a big fan of Jason Aaron stuff. But we kind of like his Avengers run was whatever. Right. Last week we talked about Brian Michael Bendis, and I'm a fan of Bendis' stuff, but it was his stuff on Avengers that kind of like, whatever.
Right. Yep.
And the one thing that Gail gets that a lot of writers, I think, and don't get is when you're writing an ensemble book, a team book, a group book, or whatever it is giving these characters their own individual voice.
Right. Or if when those characters have the same voice, they're usually at odds with each other. Do you know what I mean? Because when you could certainly make the argument that Catman and Deadshot, right,
are
the same thing, but it's tough to have two alphas on one team. You know what I mean? Like that becomes either begrudging respect or grating. Like you're like, what's going to happen next? So if they are the same, they make it work because they're not supposed to work together. Or like you said, all the characters have their individuality, and that's fantastic.
Right. And like I said, it's the scripting, it's the plotting, it's the story that like is really what carries this book, and is going to carry this as we talk about it for the rest of 2024. So next week we'll be talking about issue 2 of the miniseries.
Right.
And of course, mentioning here longboxheroes.com, head over to our store. We got shirts and pins and stickers with our fancy logo on them. Shoot me an email. Shoot me a message in the Discord. If you're in the Discord, we'll work out a deal. I'll sell you some. If you want more stuff inspired by this show, by other shows on the soon-to-be-named network, the soon-to-be-named network itself, the TeePublic store sale is going on starting this Thursday, running through the weekend. 35% off any and all things. You can get those designs on everything from cell phone covers to notebooks to everything in between.
Yes, sir.
And last but not least, of course, the best way that you could support us and support the show is signing up for the Patreon at patreon.com/longboxheroes. For as little as $1 a month, you're going to get 2 bonus shows from Todd and myself. One is Previewing the Past, looking at 30 years ago, that month's previews catalog, along with the full scans of that previews catalog to go along with it. If you don't want to listen to the show, that's cool. Go thumb through that catalog. I remember when Superman Doomsday came out. I remember when the Spider Clone Saga started. I remember when Image Comics launched. You could find that previews catalog over on our Patreon and reminisce visually, audioly, is that a word? Or
yes.
Both. The other show, of course, is Comic Book Oddities, where we look at some of these stranger, older, lesser-known, made-for-TV movies, failed pilots in the world of comic books, trying to transfer them to the big screen or the small screen. Now, under normal circumstances, we typically go with older stuff, pre-Iron Man, Marvel Cinematic Universe. But for March, we decided to go with the big one. The one that everyone's been talking about and can't stop talking about, and that was the 2024 release of Madam Web. If you want to hear my thoughts on it, Todd's thoughts on it, go sign up for the Patreon, and you'll get the full rundown from the both of us.
Right. Not so much a 2024 release as a 2024 escape, Joe.
Come on now.
Right. What?
Listen, Sony ain't going to let these things... It's not like it's Warner that's just like, oh, we're going to spend $70 million on a movie and just delete it.
That's right. We're going to take that tax money. But I will say this. Another actress from the movie going to be on Saturday Night Live this week, or coming up, whatever.
Right. It's going to be the weekend of the 2nd of March. Sydney Sweeney, who plays... Julia Not Carpenter. I forget what her last name in the movie is.
Right.
But she's going to be the host of Saturday Night Live. I will certainly be hunting down her monologue to see how many times she mentions Madam Web, the movie that made her career.
Yeah, and there's probably going to be a whole Madam Web skit, too, Joe. Where they'll find a way to make fun of Madam Web. I don't see how, but they'll find a way, because if there's anything modern SNL is known for, it's making good comedy, Joe. Impossible, Todd. Impossible. All right. So there's no other TV shows. I was going to say movie shows. Flub. Do you want to redo the ending of the show? No, we're going to leave it in. I leave my flubs in. I take yours out to protect your integrity. Right. But yeah, I don't think we got anything unless something sneaks up on us. There's the dangling sort of Damocles, if you will, of Boys season 4 just dropping any day now. The sort of Damocles. All right, stop it. But they just, and again, not we didn't mention in the main news section, but we're talking about TV shows and stuff, but they just announced that Boys got greenlit for season 5 already. So they have to be releasing that soon, right? Yeah, they gotta be releasing it any day now. That's the thing. I have a feeling it's just going to be like, bam, The Boys. You know what I mean? Yeah, it's going to be like, we're going to get a trailer on a Wednesday and it's going to drop on a Friday. It's going to be that quick. Yeah. Right. They do still do weekly stuff for Amazon, depending on whether we get 2 or 3 episodes to start with. But we're just going to be like, what happened? You know what I mean? Like, what? All right, I'm watching it, Yeah. But I'm excited. So until that shows up, the next thing that we have on the docket for movies or TVs is Doctor Who. Wow, your favorite show. So until then. No disrespect to the second Doctor, I'll just say that. That is true. Just that one time. Oh, yeah. All right, everybody, thank you very much for listening to episode 698 of Longbox Heroes. For Todd, this is Joe saying thanks for listening, and we'll see you all here next week. Remember, be a faucet, not a drain.
You're listening to the soon-to-be-named network, the Lamborghini of podcast networks.
The Rob is a Longbox hero. The Rob is a Longbox hero. He gives us five stars.